Joanna Toch. This is season 2 of our Family Law Café podcast. I'm really excited about today because we're going to talk about something fabulous, which is diamonds. So I'm introducing Lewis Malka. So Lewis, you are an expert. Tell us about you.
Oh, where should we start? I guess from the beginning.
From your diamond story in any event.
How did I get into the business?
Yes. How did
I
you
was
start?
a 15-year-old and didn't know what I wanted to do at school when I left for my GCSEs, but friends of my parents had a manufacturing jewellery firm. So they said, do you want to try a couple of weeks work experience? So I did. And I went in, and on day one, there was a guy sitting at the workbench. He had this big chunky ring on his finger. He took it off. He put it on the workbench. He got his blowtorch. He melted it, poured it into the crucible, and then proceeded to mill it out, bend it round, solder it, polish it, and an hour later or so, put it back on his finger. It was a little bit smaller and lighter for wear, but that got me hooked. It was fascinating what you could do in just a short amount of time and create another piece of jewellery. So I went on to do an apprenticeship, which was with a diamond engagement ring manufacturing company.
Yeah.
I was there altogether about 9 years, and then I set up on my own in 2000 and have been specialising in engagement rings ever since.
So where are you based?
Not far from here, actually, just in Hatton Garden at the epicentre of the diamond industry.
Yeah, I mean, Hatton Garden, it's just so lovely to walk through. I walk there, twice a day at least, going past, and obviously known to be the jewellery centre, certainly of the UK. I mean, is it well known worldwide? Because
yes,
it is very famous.
Yes, there are only, I think, 31 or 32 London, diamond bourses, Flemish for trading floor, for club, 32 diamond trading floors around the world, and one of them is here in the UK and one's in Hatton Garden. And you'd never know it, you just walk down the street. And we supply, or they supply, retailers, manufacturers, wholesalers, and then a lot of it gets exported again. So, yeah, it really is the hub.
So diamond bourse, does that mean that that's where people bring the diamonds?
No, the diamond bourse hasn't been open to the public.
Right.
Historically. It's where one-man band, individual traders would come, brokers really, they would be runners for certain people looking for certain goods, but primarily it's a community of diamond traders where they've got physical goods. So unlike the stock market where everything's on computer screen, here it's all in their hand, because you have to actually look at a diamond to understand the value of it. No two diamonds are ever the same, and two that might seem the same on paper or on a certificate can be very different in price. So every diamond has to be looked at to be valued for that figure. So the diamond trading floor was created to help like-minded people in businesses come together to be able to trade in a safe environment, and then from there they would service the industry. As industries changed, particularly at the change of the millennia, where a lot more was being done online, a lot was being imported, a lot of the wholesalers started to open up their own websites and then go direct to the public, which of course put the nose out of joint of certain people and changed the way that business is done. And it's not just in our industry, it's in a lot of industry around the world. So if you don't know about it, then now's a good time to look it up, because they are not public facing necessarily, but lots of trade is being done that can service the public, but through the doors of the diamond bourse.
The diamond bourse, to me, that sounds a little bit like, just around the corner you have Smithfield Market. We used to have Covent Garden Market. They've changed a lot.
Yeah.
So how important is it for you as an expert to assess a diamond?
I don't need the diamond bourse to do that.
Yeah.
There are plenty of facilities, machinery, especially nowadays, where laboratory grown diamonds, or manufactured diamonds as I call them, is becoming more prevalent, and it is very difficult to tell the difference between the real thing, a natural mined diamond, and a lab grown.
Yeah.
So we've got certain equipment that can test it and tell us exactly the composition, whether it was made in the ground or whether it was made in a factory.
So can you explain the difference then? So you talked about lab grown.
Yes.
And a real diamond.
And then a real diamond.
Yeah, obviously I think we know what a real diamond is. I mean, how are diamonds extracted?
Sure, the terminology for a real diamond, if you like, is a natural mined diamond.
Yeah.
The extraction process has been the same for 100 or so years, whereby it's mined. And as mining has become more advanced, we are able to dig deeper and find more diamonds underground. I think there are only currently 30 established mines of a not sustainable, but that give out enough produce around the world that are still around.
Yeah.
In terms of the laboratory grown diamonds, they tend to take the seed of a diamond and in layman's terms, put it in a microwave, introduce heat and pressure, and then it grows this diamond, and the diamond's grown in a sort of layer formation, if you looked at the cross section of it, but it does grow, and it is from a natural diamond. It is as bright and as vibrant as a diamond. They're just not as much worth in them as a natural diamond.
So I can kind of see by your expression that you might be favouring the natural diamond as opposed to the lab grown. Why is that? What do you say is different to the natural diamond?
The natural diamond, I mean, the sentiment behind it for a start is that the stone was in the ground for millions of years. A lot of heat, a lot of pressure, volcanic eruptions, etc., brought that stone to the surface, and it's a one of a kind. With a lab-grown diamond, they are produced in a factory. They're not one of a kind. They are replicas of, even though the essence of it is the same. It's a diamond. That's like, I guess, me going to a leather factory where Louis Vuitton go, and they make their handbags from there, but I buy the leather, put the bag together myself at a fraction of the price. I could say it's still a Louis Vuitton bag, but we both know it isn't. Mm. So you either want the real thing that's got that emotional connection, and diamonds, natural diamonds, have been handed down a few generations now as well, so you've got that sentimental feel. Would there be any sentimentality behind a fake handbag or a fake watch or something like that? So the value of them as well, in terms of actual cost price, has been plummeting, certainly in recent months on the wholesale side.
That's the lab ones, yeah.
That's a lab one, and that's because they've produced so many of them, they've saturated the market. Mm-hmm. With mined diamonds, there's conspiracists out there that say that De Beers, for want of a better company, have been holding diamonds and therefore controlling the prices. That might have been true 30, 40, 50 years ago, but it's certainly not true now. In fact, De Beers hardly have any diamonds as such within the diamond market. There are so many other companies out there that have also got their own stock that I think it's very difficult for someone to say, yeah, they're holding back.
So that mined diamond is likely to hold its value. Would that be your advice? Yeah. What makes a good diamond?
What makes a good diamond? Nature.
Yeah. But I mean, if I were choosing a diamond, if I were coming to you as a Lewis, I want the best diamond, for this amount. I mean, is that how do people approach this, buying a diamond? Is it usually for an engagement?
Yeah, well, with me, most of the people that come to me for a diamond, a significant diamond, they're coming because they want to get an engagement ring. That's my specialty. And I will ask the client, what sort of budget have you got and what shaped diamond have you got in mind? And then I'll find what I feel is the best value for money stone, looking at all the different characteristics of a diamond and present them, and then give you the opportunity to have a look with a loupe, with the tweezers, to see exactly where the imperfections might be in a diamond. Can you see them with the naked eye? No. So why would you spend more money and get a cleaner stone, if you like, a higher clarity, and all that's going to do for the same money is give you a smaller diamond. So education is part of it. Yeah. And you need to understand what you're buying.
So what would you be looking for? What are the qualities of a diamond? So you've talked about clarity. What does that mean?
Yeah, so the clarity are imperfections in a diamond. Every single diamond has imperfection, even flawless. Because if you magnify it enough, you're going to find something in there. But let's just stay with a 10 times magnification, which is how diamonds are graded, in particular by the GIA, who are world famous, the Gemological Institute of America, and they're really the benchmark of diamond grading laboratories. The highest color grade, which ironically is colorless, is a D color. Clarity grade, the highest clarity is flawless. And then you have your cut, the way the diamond's cut, so that the light bounces out very nicely and it's not looking dull. And then the carat, which is the weight of the stone. So from my perspective, for my clients, I believe that it's important to have a high color, because that's something someone will notice. As you go slightly down on the colour chart, they start to get a bit yellowy, browny. And then in terms of clarity, somewhere in the middle, like a VS2 and SI1, so very small inclusion or slightly included. And as long as you can't see that mark, there's no reason why you shouldn't buy it. So that's the sort of balance I try and strike.
And what about the shape of the diamond?
The shape, that is really personal choice.
Yeah.
The most popular shape is a round. It's called the modern brilliant cut because it's got 58 facets and it's just everything is in perfect symmetry there. Yeah, when you look at them up close, they're like a kaleidoscope of colours. But really, anything other than that, it's really down to personal preference.
So often I'm dealing with family law, and so people will have jewellery and they're asked to list items of value, and jewellery will obviously be an item of value, and it may be the engagement ring, the wedding ring, other items of jewellery. Are you ever asked to value those? Do you ever get involved in that side of things?
So valuation for a divorce settlement, I think it's the Form E, is that correct?
That's where you give your disclosure.
Yeah, it's very different to a valuation that you'd have for insurance replacement.
Yeah.
The insurance replacement is going to be the high street retail value of the piece. But when you're dealing with, certainly the cases I've come across, when you're dealing with divorce and you have to list your items, it's really how much am I going to get back for this if I had to sell it today to fund my new lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so it's a very different value. It's almost like the second-hand value in terms of buying back. So that is something that I do get involved with. I think I've had clients over the years where, is it normal that they'd have to have two valuations done? One by him, one by her?
No, what that used to be, it used to be that, and sometimes still is, one party gets their own valuation and the other party gets their valuation. And what the court will often ask for is a jointly instructed valuer, so that the parties would agree who would do the valuations. They may choose someone like you, and then you're doing it, and you have one eye on the fact that your responsibility is to the court and not just to them.
Yes.
So you may have been involved in sole valuations or jointly instructed ones, I would think.
Right.
Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had a horrible scenario where I had a lady come to me to sell her old engagement ring.
Yeah.
I didn't do the valuations for the Form E's for the divorce, but she'd finally got her decree absolute, and the final piece that she had left was her engagement ring that was about, I think if memory serves me correctly, around about a 3-carat solitaire diamond ring that she'd had a valuation for the insurance replacement at around about £46,000. And when she brought it in to me to sell, I took one look at it and I had to break the horrible news that it was actually a fake stone. It was a cubic, unfortunately, and that the husband, we assume, must have taken it to his jeweller to do the valuations for the court and asked the jewellers to switch it out. That was what she said was possible that could have happened. So it's very, very heartbreaking. And she's been insuring this for that amount of time, money for a few years now. So
I mean,
heartbreaking.
I find that it's really one of the areas in divorce finances that's really tricky, because sometimes people will remove jewellery and it never seems to really go well. Either you just leave it alone and parties agree it, but when they're not in agreement, when it's a difficult case, the issue of jewellery can be really difficult and controversial. And I think judges struggle, because often it's just one word against the other, where one will say it was in the safe and it was removed, or it's still there, and the party say, no, it's gone, it's not in the house. I don't know if you've ever been entangled in that.
No, thankfully I haven't been entangled. I mean, I've been divorced myself and had to go through all this, but when it came to the jewellery side of things, I've got 2 daughters, and I just said to my ex-wife, I said, just leave the jewellery out of the Form E. I'm sure they're going to inherit it at some point, so what's the point in fighting over it? If I took it, I'd probably sell it. If you take it, you already keep it, so you might as well hold on to it.
I think that sort of creative thinking, and that thinking that if parties can find a way to agree about jewellery, it's so much better, because it's one of those areas where, as I've said, one party will say they've removed it, another party will say, it's still there, or, in the case that you did, where it was something happened and it was replaced. So if parties can be really positive, and I think that's something that we as lawyers can suggest to them, hey, how about just making it clear that jewellery is for the children? Because even if they don't like each other, hopefully they still like their children.
Exactly.
So that is a way forward, I think, with jewellery.
Yeah, I agree. And jewellery is one of those things that, the diamonds, if it's a piece of diamond jewellery, not necessarily an engagement ring, but earrings, rings, whatever it is, the metal over time, if you're wearing it anyway day to day, does wear down, and more often than not, you'll want to have a new shank put on the back of the ring, for example. But in cases like this, keep the diamonds, have something else made from it, either to commemorate what's just happened, that you've got closure and you've divorced and you moved on, or that you could have something made for one of your children with it at a later date. So there's always other options to be done with it. And I think some people, they've got the stereotype that actually I can't do with it because it's just going to remind me of bad times. But other people are happy to have it remade.
Yeah. Do you deal with that? So when people are getting divorced or have got divorced, can they come to you and say, can we change this? I want to, because knowing what to do with your wedding ring or engagement ring, that could be tricky. So can you reset that?
I mean, most of the time they'll sell it, and then with the money from that, they'll have something else remade. Because, like I say, the stigma of it was associated with, or have the metal reused, because in their eyes it was unlucky. So yes, we can do that aside, separate transaction, and then have something new made.
Yeah. And if do you get situations where someone comes to you and they've chosen something for the other party, and then it just doesn't go well when they hand it over? Is that a common? You're laughing.
Yeah,
it sounds like that does happen.
It's funny because in 2016 I wrote a book called The Engagement Ring. How to make sure you get the perfect ring first time, because found out that about 1 in 5 women, after doing my research, 1 in 5 ladies hate their engagement ring.
Dear.
And the reason that they hate their engagement ring is because he's gone to surprise her with a proposal, picked a ring that he thinks she's gonna like, because based on what he likes, and when he's given it to her, of course she's been grateful and there's been the euphoria of the moment, but then after a couple of weeks or so, it's dulled down a bit, and she's like, actually, I don't really like it. It was only a few months ago, there was a couple, he'd been working really hard worker, didn't have a huge budget, and went for a diamond that was 3/4 of a carat, a princess cut, so a square. And he was deliberating over the design, and he went for something very simple in the end that was timeless, and presented it to her. They then came in together, and I changed the finger size because he didn't know her size, as it was a surprise. 2 weeks later, she's messaged me, can I come and see you? So I said yes. She came in and she said, look, I feel very embarrassed about this, but I'm from a culture, a Canadian she was, culture where we go for size over quality, and all of my friends have got 2 carat plus diamonds. Because I don't know what to say to him and how to break it. Is there any way that we can maybe swap this for a bigger stone, and I don't mind paying the difference? And I said, look, I'm not a marriage counsellor, right? But I think that's something you need to speak to him about before you actually sit down and go ahead with this, because you'll probably hurt his feelings. Depends how strong your relationship is together. They did not, sadly, go ahead with the wedding. They parted ways.
Didn't go ahead with the wedding.
They parted ways.
Well, maybe that was a sort of flag.
Probably. Probably. So he possibly had a lucky escape.
And I'm sure you know this. So if they didn't go ahead with the marriage, who owns the ring?
Well, technically, from what I believe, it's she has to return it. I think the engagement ring is your what is it, like a contract?
I mean, it used to be the law, didn't it? I mean, if we were going back maybe 120 years, it was for breach of promise. So a man would propose, and then if it was called off, then he could be that was a legal action.
Yes,
I think that has gone. I don't think.
Oh really? Okay, be interested. I'll have to check that as well. But I think still the ownership issue. I haven't looked it up. I'm going to put a hand on heart. It's never come up. No one's. Well, I wouldn't really. I mean, don't get involved at that stage. I do have cases where a party will say, "I want the ring back," and it's a wedding ring. I always say, "Do you really though?" And it just seems a sort of strange thing. But then I suppose sometimes it might be from their family. Yeah, I can understand if it was an engagement ring that was passed down from the grandmother,
or a
mother,
wedding
etc.
That's been in the family.
But otherwise, to me, it just seems petty. But I don't know. Maybe I've got different eyes on when it comes to this sort of thing. I
mean, obviously, I want to try to. As I say, the jewellery aspect can be. I don't want to use the word toxic, but it can be the really nastiest part of
because it's got finances. A value that's significant. I mean, that could pay a credit card debt that's jointly owned, for example, or something, or pay off a car. So yes, I do understand the emotion attached to it as well.
And classically, because these diamonds are so small, aren't they? And I mean, I think when I came into, because your office is in the Bourse,
yes,
which I hadn't mentioned, which is really interesting. Does anyone else? I mean, do other people have offices actually in the
there's
Bourse?
a few of us, maybe
Yeah.
half a dozen or so,
Yeah.
who
Select
can see
few.
clients up in the Bourse.
Yeah.
But no.
And you showed me a diamond, and it was just tiny little thing, and you said, well, the value is 40,000, and it just made me think how there are lots, especially lots of cultures where traditionally, they might have to leave quickly, that value is kept in jewellery because it's so small. Like a little bag of diamonds would be many hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Absolutely.
And I'm not, as I say, I'm not sure that always the English courts really understand how much value there is in jewellery, because people will say to me, it really is worth this, and then on the other side, no, it's just costume jewellery, and just whole issues about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a case where it was a 48-year marriage, which was quite shocking, but it went to, 4 or 5 days hearing, and there were real issues about whether, I think the allegation was that the husband that she had packaged up the jewellery and put it in the fridge for some reason, and he had taken it. And I'm not sure I just think the judge just had no idea really what to do in that situation. I'm not sure who had that, but I think it was a lot of money.
Yeah, and they would have probably had more than one valuation for it that's normally quite inflated as a retail valuation, and so judge wouldn't know where to go with it.
Well, I think I know that I remember now, it was that she put it in 4 packets, because I think there were 2 children and it was for grandchildren, and they'd been put in different places.
Right.
And then she said, I went back to the fridge and it wasn't there, and he'd taken it, and he said he hadn't taken it. And what is the judge supposed to do in that situation? That finding the truth of that is so difficult.
Yeah.
So very valuable. And so if someone's, say, moving on, because on Family Law Café we're hoping they come to us, they get through a difficult time, which divorce invariably is, and looking to the future. And so looking to their new relationship, it seems to me that, a diamond, that's a very, it's got a story behind it, hasn't it? It's not just an object.
No, every single diamond is unique and individual. So stick to natural, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But they tell a story. They are either a commemoration or something, whether it's something past or something future. And that's what we should enjoy about them. And you can have anything made with stones in them.
Do people come to you together for an engagement ring ever?
I think about 90% of my clients for engagement rings is the guy coming before he proposes to her. So sometimes they've got their notebooks with them, and they've got different photos, etc., of different jewellery that she wears, because it's always important to do your research. You have to understand her lifestyle. If she's someone that's in the gym all the time, or that is a keen gardener, you don't want to get something delicate and dainty with claws that's going to break off. And quite the opposite as well. I mean, she might be working for the NHS, or might be in the medical field, and then she's wearing gloves every day. So you don't want something that's got a tool setting that's going to catch on the gloves.
And do women come for men?
Yes, not often, but yes.
And do men come for men and women come for women? So it's just all different,
all different walks of life, that everybody is welcome.
Yeah, it has that tradition.
Exactly.
I want to introduce you to my next guest on the podcast, who is Sarah. She's going to come in. She's in a completely different field. You haven't met before, so I'm going to allow her to come in, ask you a few questions, because so it will be totally unplanned. She's been listening in for a bit, so I'll let her ask you some questions.
Fabulous, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
So I work as a psychotherapist, and you've just said that you're not a marriage counsellor, but you'd have to have these conversations with some of your clients.
Sometimes I feel like that is my role, but only marginally.
Only marginally. What do you think is the key skill that you have to be a really successful bespoke jeweller?
2 ears.
2 ears.
2 ears. You have to be a really good listener. I think too many people, whether it's being a bespoke jeweller or being in sales, they're too quick to voice their opinion and how things should be, where instead you really have to sit down and listen to what the client is saying. And I think a lot of people are afraid of there being dead air. So that moment of silence in the room where people feel like they have to fill the void and they have to talk. And I think by having that, it actually gives the client the opportunity to actually think about and consider what they're doing. And it also just gives me the chance to sit there and to watch their reaction to either different diamonds or to different ring settings, so that I can sort of see which way they're going just by looking at their eyes and their gestures.
So you're really reading the room all the time?
Yeah.
Do you play poker?
No, I don't. I've got this giggle that I would just like give my
tells.
hand away the whole time.
You say you're not a counsellor, but that actually sounds very much like the key skills of a counsellor: to be listening, not to fill the silence, to let them speak, and not to contradict them. So you must have had occasions where you thought, this is hideous.
Oh, there have been. But I think growing up
you kept going.
Yeah. But growing up with three sisters, I think I was sort of by force told to keep my mouth shut most of the time. Yeah. So that's what turned me into a good listener. But yeah, you can see there are situations. I mean, I had years ago now, there was a couple sitting in front of me looking for an engagement ring, and he didn't want her to know the price of the stones. But we had a budget, and each of the 3 diamonds that I presented were within the criteria of the budget. And she picked one of the stones that wasn't the most expensive, but he turned around as a joke and said, "Oh, you would pick the most expensive one, wouldn't you?" And then she turned around and said, "Does that mean we're not going shopping for shoes now?" And he went bright red, and I could have been swallowed up by the floor. It was just one of those scenarios. I'm like, I can't even remember if they came out for wedding rings or not. Did it last? Who knows?
Last question, like a pop quiz question.
Sure.
What's the most expensive diamond that you've ever held?
Oh, I had a 34 carat round brilliant cut diamond that was just under the £2 million mark. It wasn't one of mine. I didn't sell it to a client of mine, unfortunately. It was just on the trading floor with one of my colleagues on my left that I was able to play around with, which was literally the size of a £1 coin.
Wow.
So yes, it was pretty humongous, and the quality was excellent, hence the price. But the largest stone that I've sold to somebody was a few years ago, actually, for their engagement. It had a nice, just over 6 carat cushion-shaped diamond as a centerpiece, and then just flanked by a pair of what we call half moon diamonds. So like the letter, half a circle, half a moon on either side, and just in a nice, simple, elegant skeleton setting, looked fantastic. And they're still happily married, thankfully.
Oh, lovely.
So there we go.
It's good luck that comes with your diamonds.
Yeah, there we are. Not all the time, but most of the time.
That's really nice.
Thank you.